Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Bryan W. Adams.
Well, all right. Hey, everybody. This is Bryan Adams. Thank you so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. Thank you so much for starting off your week with us. We've got so much exciting things to talk about today. And just, I got to tell you, the changes in the air, you can feel more positivity coming out of just everywhere, it seems. And the weather's changing, the flowers are blooming. Man, I tell you what, I'm starting to feel like we are starting on the opportunity to get out of this whole thing, and it is I'm very excited to start our week here with all of you. So thank you so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. It takes a lot of different skill sets and personalities to be successful in our business. And in a lot of ways, it's like a sports team in that regard. Everybody has a role to play, and everybody has a position to be in. And you have to all understand that clearly and be motivated to fulfill that kind of position there. And providing upon that motivation is a critical role. You have to have a coach that is encouraging people and continuing to motivate people. And today's guest is Craig Harvey, the CEO and co-founder of North American Senior Benefits. And Craig is a master motivator. He has a keen understanding of how to maximize the people around him and all of their potential. And he leads and motivates a team at North American Senior Benefits that has become one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing senior benefit agencies in the country. He has some incredibly interesting background that he draws from being a youth minister to spending his 4 years in college as a starting quarterback of his college football team, and then really being a number one sales agent in the field, and then becoming co-founder of North American Senior Benefits, or NASB as some call it. I really, really admire Craig's boundless energy and enthusiasm that he has, not only for business, but also for life. One thing I can say about Craig is there is nothing that can keep this guy down. And anyone who's been around Craig can attest he's got a ton of insightful stories to share. And I can't wait to get him on this podcast and start sharing some of these stories with you. So, Craig, thank you so much for joining us today. So excited to have you on today. Welcome to the team, my man.
Bryan, that's an amazing introduction, friend.
I love it that you got Lene and your mom on. You've got two of the most amazing women in your life, frankly, I mean, two amazing women, period, but two amazing women in your life. I also love, I remember whenever I came to visit North American Senior Benefits, and Chad Milner invited me to come in and just kind of sit as a wallflower at one of y'all's conferences and watch you kind of do your thing and get up and just inspire your team in a way that I'd never honestly really ever seen before. And just the way you knew everybody by name and the way that you would recognize them, and it was all about the team. And I remember I sat next to your mom, and your mom had no idea who I was. Probably still doesn't know really who I am, but I was sitting next to your mom, and I was watching the way that she was just so proud of you, man. And I got to tell you, that is, I'm a mama's boy, and that was one of those things. I didn't even know she was your mom, and I'm sitting next to this lady, and I was like, that's got to be Craig's mom, because she's just so proud of you, man. And I am also incredibly proud to be your partner. So I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know if I ever shared that with you, man.
No, man, she's great for a courtesy laugh. Whenever I often tell a bad joke, but I do appreciate those kind words, and it's an honor, man, to represent NASB and be on with you this morning.
Well, you guys have an amazing team. I remember when we first really started talking and just kind of looking at what we could all do together, and when Chad introduced us, it was one of those things. It was just like, how do we figure this out? Because if we could all come together, we knew, man, we could do some special things, right?
Absolutely. And like I'd really like to start by just giving a shout out to Chad Milner. I remember about 8 years ago, we're coming up on our 8-year birthday in July. So I guess it's funny. My daughter, Eden, I've always said I've got 3 kids, Caden, Eden, and NASB. And NASB and Eden are the same age. They were born at just about the same time on the calendar. But Chad, in the beginning especially, Mr. Milner, Chip Milner, loaning us. I remember going into Chad's office, and I kind of pitched the vision for NASB to him. And I'll never forget, said, man, I'm probably going to need about $1 million to get this thing launched. And he said, okay. I was like, crap, why didn't I say I'm going to need about $2 million, to get this thing launched? And I could have had an advance a little there, but he was so kind. Not only did he loan us the money, Bryan, he loaned us his name, which, a great name is better than money. And I just wouldn't be here without him. NASB wouldn't be who she is without Chad Milner, and all the partners and I respect and honor, and just shout him out big time because he deserves it.
Well, and as you recall, whenever we first started talking, I even explicitly said to everybody that we wouldn't be here without Chad Milner, and we wouldn't do this partnership because of just my respect. Chad and I became really great friends. There's not many people I admire more than Chad Milner and his entire family. I mean, golly, man, Chip Milner is one of the just best people in the world. We need to get both of them on here. I mean, Chip's got some stories. I mean, that Milner family goes back to literally the Civil War, selling insurance, and so we ought to get them on this podcast at some point. But I appreciate you saying that, because there's nobody. I mean, that family is just one family that I just admire so much. And Chad has been just a dear friend of mine for a long time, and I just love him and Wendy and their entire family. So I appreciate you saying that. Well, Craig, on this podcast, I mean, this whole idea of this podcast is, I think, to really just highlight some ideas and different thoughts that we've got, share best practices, share just overall kind of just insight from our leaders. And one of the things I love about this time that we have here at Integrity and everything that's going on is the fact that we've all kind of been able to slow down just a little bit, kind of catch our breath. And as you're doing that, we're able to also get to know each other better. So I've heard from a lot of our partners and a lot of our people here on the call today that one of the best parts of this entire kind of Inspire podcast that we've created here is just this opportunity just to get to know each other, but also to learn from each other. And without integrity, we would all be kind of an island on our own and not really, frankly, have that type of opportunity. And so I know you have a lot of stories, Craig. And I mean, one of the things I love about you is you're always learning from everyone. You're always looking for different opportunities to learn, regardless of where you are. And I know you've got a lot of stories, but one of them was from a CEO from another industry that I know that had a huge impact on you. As you got a chance just to pick his brain. So would you mind sharing some of that story? Because I think it's really relevant for kind of today's call.
Yes, sir. I was on a flight from Hartsfield in Atlanta. I think I was going to Detroit, Michigan, actually. And I was able to upgrade the seat to an exit row. And that's always really cool. And I was against the window. There was nobody sitting in the middle seat. And then there was an individual in the aisle. And we're about to take off. and an old guy, just started. He must have come on right as the passenger door was closing, and people were shaking his hand. He's older, bald gentleman, tall, and literally, I thought he was a senator. I thought he was some kind of a congressman or something. And he sits down, Bryan, right beside me, and I was actually frustrated because I thought I had some extra room there.
Like, oh my gosh, I finally got a seat by myself. I don't want anybody sitting by me.
Yeah. He plops down, and I'm telling you, no less than 10 people shook his hand. And then on the screen, if you guys remember a few years ago, the CEO of Delta comes on, and that happened right there. And the gentleman on the screen said, "Hello, this is Richard Anderson with Delta Airlines." And Bryan, I look beside me, it's Richard Anderson. He was sitting beside me. That was the guy. And so as we taxied to the runway, or off the runway, began to take off, probably, I guess, over Nashville. Maybe I waited until Kentucky. I doubt it. I just said, "Mr. Anderson, my name's Craig Harvey. I've got a little insurance group here in Atlanta. I would love to pick your brain if I could." And matter of fact, he was in the insurance industry at one time. He said he was an executive with Humana. Yeah, he said he was a huge executive with Humana, and he left Humana to go with Delta. And there's three things he told me, and I wrote these down. And it's interesting sometimes, as all of us are growing our businesses, sometimes you're doing more right than you think you are. It just takes a little time to materialize. I talk to our agents all the time about extended release capsules. If you've ever looked on a medicine bottle, sometimes it will be an extended release capsule, which means when you take the medicine, it doesn't hit you right away. Right? So it's got to get in your bloodstream. So even when the symptoms are still there, it's attacking the virus or attacking the headache or attacking the ache or the pain. And so as he began to talk, I was like, man, there's some things that we're doing that mirror what he said drove Delta. The first thing he said, Bryan, which I'll never forget, he said, culture drives commerce. Culture drives commerce. He said the reason Delta is better than AirTran, it's better than Southwest, it's better than British Airways. He says, I know I'm biased here, but he said it's our people. It's our people. And he said the one thing I'll tell you that separates Delta is the people. And as I began to look at NASB and the group that we were attempting to construct and bring together, Bryan, we started with 8 agents. 8. I remember being in Chad's office and saying, listen, we're going to start small. And here's the thing. We wanted growth, but we wanted the right kind of growth. In other words, we wanted calculated growth. I've always said fast doesn't last. Every time I read The Tortoise and the Hare book, Bryan, to my daughter Eden, I keep expecting the hare to win. I mean, the hare is more talented. The hare is more athletic. The odds in Vegas had to have just gone off the chart when that tortoise, that consistent, less talented, but driven by perhaps what others thought held him back. He just kept coming and coming and coming and coming, and you can't keep that tortoise down. And as I talked to Chad Milner in the beginning, I said, Chad, what do you know that tastes better in a microwave than does a crock pot? I mean, the only thing that tastes better in a microwave is popcorn, okay? If you're going to cook something. And so I want to cook this NASB dish, a crock pot, low and slow, doing it the right way, getting the right people. I've often said this, Bryan, you put 1,000 people in a room, all the alike people find each other. Think about it. You put 1,000 people in a room, all the smokers find each other. All the athletes find each other. All the gossips find each other. So, for me, I've always tried to tell our team, we attract who we are. We attract who we are. So if we want to attract the type of agent, we've got to be who it is that we want to attract. And so, my little line, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Well, the together is really going to be a reflection of who you are. Make sense?
Absolutely. Wow. Man, there's so much to that. First of all, fast doesn't last. It's so true. I remember when we were starting Integrity, there was a lot of times I was sitting back going, man, God, like, why is this taking so long? What's going on? And I think back that if we would have seen too much success too soon, or if I personally, just me personally, would have seen that too soon, I don't think I would have ever appreciated it. And somebody told me the other day, I was literally in New York before all this happened. Was in New York, and this big company investment group was telling me, "Oh my gosh, you guys are just an overnight success." And I was like, what about the 17 years it took to get here, man? Like, nobody sees that, right? Nobody sees that. I was like, I'm glad I'm finally an overnight success. Like, nobody was ever accusing me of that before. But the truth is, the culture does. I mean, culture matters more than anything else. And I was talking to some guys. I mentioned this on another one of these calls, but somebody said, "What's y'all's key to success right now?" Because we're having record months. I mean, like while the world's falling apart financially, the economy's falling apart, while businesses around the globe are struggling. I mean, we had an amazing March, and we're on to a better April. And somebody said, "What is your key to that success?" And I said, "It's the people. Like, we've got the best people in the world, and all we're doing is focusing on culture, and we're getting together every morning as a group to get to know each other better." That's where you focus on people. And we've got great people like Karen Fredericks the other day saying, it's okay if things get tough. Like, slow down and look your kids in the eyes. And you've got people who are literally saying those things to encourage everybody. Man, how do you feel if that's the case, right? I mean, it's amazing. So, I mean, that's just incredible advice. What are some of the other things he shared with you?
Well, just one last point about culture driving commerce, Bryan. I believe this with all my heart. You reproduce who you are. At the end of the day, your DNA, your thought process, who you are is going to come forth. I don't believe people do what is taught with a T. I believe they do what is caught with a C. And I think that's what he was saying, that if you surround yourself with a nucleus, with an inner circle, with that foundational principles, mentality-wise, even if it takes you longer to get there, ultimately who you have foundationally is going to reflect how many you have ultimately. And I love that. Second thing he told me real quick, listen to this. He said, eat your own dog food. That's what he said. Eat your own dog food. And I'm like,
what does that mean? I want to.
I had no idea. In the beginning, I was like, what does that mean? So here's what he said. He said, I'm flying coach. I gave him my business card. I mean, I was trying to be, professional. He'd forgotten my name. He looked down, Craig. He said, I'm flying coach. Do you think I have to fly coach as the CEO of Delta? I said, no, sir, probably not. He said, but I'm eating my own dog food. In other words, he was saying, I have bought into what it is I'm selling. And we began to talk about that a little bit. And he talked about how he believed in Delta. And as he said that, I thought, man, I eat, breathe, and bleed NASB. And basically what he was saying was belief drives behavior. So oftentimes in my life, I've tried to coach behavior. It's been one of the things that I've done just since I was in college. And in order to do that as a football coach, or if you're in a position to influence people, you've got to get to their core belief system if you're ever going to really drive what they do. Bryan, that's why we do our sales juice calls. I call it sales juice, freshly squeezed. We do it every morning. And it's 30 minutes. It's quick, but it's a checkup from the neck up. It is a mental chiropractic appointment, man, that just gets our head right, because sales is emotion. It is an emotional business. And so what I've learned is this stuff leaks out. The energy leaks out, the enthusiasm, the inspiration leaks out. Sometimes the tutelage leaks out. And so if I can get 30 minutes of a morning it's kind of like a huddle before you take the court, is the way I look at it. It's a huddle before we take the field. And so what it enables us to do is speak to what really is going to create the behavior for that day and that week. It's the belief of the agent. And so just kind of like what you're doing, following in your footsteps here, bringing on different stories, testimonials, but at the same time, information, inspiration, but ultimately application. I was telling Mr. Anderson about NESB and some of the success we'd had, and he asked me this. He said, how do you judge the results, or what is your job to be able to create the results that you want to see? And I told him this little analogy. I asked him, I said, Mr. Anderson, do you like popcorn? He's like, yeah, who doesn't like popcorn? I said, you'll need to start serving that, sir, here on these Delta flights. He chuckled. But I said, popcorn, if you put a bag of popcorn in a microwave, you don't know when the kernel pops. All you know is that it is exposed to heat, right? And the heat creates the result. Now, some kernels pop quick. Others pop throughout the cycle, but here's the funny thing. Inevitably, once the timer runs out, you know how it is. There's like 3 or 4 kernels that pop way after the beginning first few kernels somehow got it. And that's the way I see our business, brother. It's our job as these integrity partners and leaders. We bring the heat. It's our job to bring the heat. I don't know when my agents are going to get it. I don't know when they're going to pop. Some will pop early. Some will pop late. That's not really as much of, when I say I can't control that, what I can control is the heat. Every time I get to talk to them, every time I get to try to be an influencer, to create an atmosphere for them to fulfill their destiny, which if a kernel doesn't pop, it's missed out on its destiny, right? I feel like our agents are the same way.
Somebody said to me whenever we first started out that it felt like we were over communicating. Felt like we were trying to I don't know, stay on top of a lot of this too much and trying to keep talking to people about things. And my response to that was pretty simple. I would rather over communicate than under communicate any day of the week, because people, especially as we go into a remote work environment like we've been in, man, it gets lonely. And so that's why it's so important for me to be sending out emails and to be getting on these calls. And I would put up my phone time, frankly, against anybody's phone time in the company right now, because like what we've done is just stay so focused on how do you just keep communicating to people so that people understand where you are and where we're going. And that's one of the things I love about you guys, about how y'all have those daily calls. And it can be tough, man. I mean, this podcast become almost a small job we've got a team working on putting these together and staying on top of it. However, it's so important. That communication is just so important for sure.
My opinion, communication and the relationships that we have with our partner. I'll tell you this, Bryan, I know we're going through a different season right now. This morning, my message to my guys was, a lot of agents right now, they at least I'll just speak for NESB. We had our biggest month last month.
Dude, let's just stop for a minute. Like that is the power of what we're working on. Is people know what we need. They know their need in these products that we offer, and we're just hearing that over and over and over and over from all of these different businesses that we're partnered with, just having amazing results because we're an essential. And this comes back to even the government has identified our business as essential. And it's because people need what we're offering as much as they need other products and services. And so, man, congratulations. You guys have just such an amazing team, which comes back to even, I think, one of the things you say a lot is about the difference between, what to bring on and kind of lead your team, right?
Obviously, I think it's our job as the leaders to be able to fill in the gaps, and let's just say fill in the needs of the agents that are around us. And one of those big things sometimes, Bryan, let's just be honest, is confidence. It's up to us, in my opinion, to provide just that reassurance. Man, have you ever been through so much? Sometimes you just lose confidence in yourself. I mean, you lose that grit that you had.
Does.
So that's what we try to kind of redeposit. Here's the other thing, and I told the guys this morning. President Trump, Governor Kemp, Governor Whitner, Governor Abbott, They can't say anything to make us more essential right now. There's not going to be a press release. This afternoon, I try to watch President Trump every day at 6. He can't make us more essential than we are. There's not going to be a document. There's not going to be some kind of a presidential order that goes out that says, okay, now you guys are unquarantined. This isn't the first time we faced adversity. I heard Scott Riddle the other day on this call talking about, look, this is now, but there'll be a next. Something's going to come next. And so just being able to redeposit that belief in our guys that, man, you got this. We've been through stuff like this before, and you're not in it alone. We're kind of right there together. And I know integrity has been such a huge part of our success, and we're super grateful, brother.
Well, that's appreciate that. So man, it's been a lot more fun together than it would be on our own, because you could just you could get really down if you were alone through that. So I know one of the last points and one of the kind of highlights of kind of what we called this segment was trucks versus trailers. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, sir. So he gave me a few points, but the last thing he said, and it was weird the way he did it. He kind of, I don't know, around maybe Ohio, he kind of drifted off to sleep a little bit, took a little cat nap before we landed. And he's getting off the plane, and I just said, thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. Anything else? And he just looked right at me. And if you've met the man or seen him, I mean, he's a no-nonsense. He's a lot like you. He's just a leader of leaders. And he said, listen, be a truck, not a trailer. And then he just walks off. He didn't even explain it. He was like this, this sage, this monk that just tells you so, be a truck, not a trailer, and walks off. And I'm thinking, what? But then as I kind of went back through the conversations we had, I understood what he meant. Because look, trucks pull trailers. I mean, when you think about a truck, Bryan, you drive a truck, sir. At least the last time I saw you, you had just a phenomenal one. Trucks are 30% cab, 70% cargo. I mean, trucks are timeless. Trucks hold their value more than any other vehicle, and the purpose of a truck is to pull. Bottom line, when you look at a trailer being behind it. So here's what I think he meant: trailers get pulled, trucks do the pulling. So look at it like this: trucks are leaders, trailers are managers. And I've often looked at the NASB model, and I think the reason integrity is such a juggernaut, the reason it's such a beast, a man taught me this, a mentor in my life taught me this years ago. He said, if you want to add, partner with followers. He said, but if you want to multiply, partner with leaders. And he said, it's expensive. It's expensive to lead leaders. You're going to have to go first. One of my favorite stories is on Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great was followed around years ago by a scribe. They didn't have TMZ. They didn't have, social media engines. Alexander was followed by a man named Herodias. And Herodias noted in his biography of Alexander the Great that he never heard Alexander the Great tell anybody to go. In all their battles and all their skirmishes and all their wars, Alexander the Great never said the word go. Listen, he only invited people to come. That's all he did. He invited them to join him at a place he was already at. That is why I can speak for NASB. That is why we partnered with integrity. I'm often reminded, Bryan, of draft horses. And my grandfather was a farmer. Literally, his last name was Farmer. But they also grew crops, and he built houses, and that's how we grew up. And I remember seeing horses back in the day as they would literally plow the field. And this is true. One draft horse can pull 8,000 pounds, right? But two draft horses can pull 24,000 pounds. Now, look, I'm not a math major. I was an English major, okay? But I think about that old, those words, those black and white words that are to live by. One can set 1,000 to flight. Two can set 10,000. Where's this math coming from? I mean, who is doing this, right? This is not normal. What I've learned in life is that not only can you do more together than you could apart, but it's who. It's so important. Looking at this draft horse analogy, that was integrity for us. I mean, we thought we were doing okay, but we had this this draft horse. We had this truck, this Hemi diesel, just beast of an integrity marketing group to be able to hook onto and say, look at where we can go. If one horse can pull 1,000, and then now, look, when I see guys like Sean Mike, who was formerly a rival, who now he's in the octagon with me, I look at guys like Avi Osseline and Brian McCann. Man, I've known those guys forever. And we used to joke around that we're kind of like quarterbacks in the NFL. We want to beat each other, but we love each other. Allentown was a legend, still is a legend. Frank Buse, this is the circle I ran in. And to see all these guys now, draft horses, carrying this integrity flag, dude, number one, it's humbling. I mean, it will check you. Everybody's heard Bryan say, check your ego at the door. When you get in a room with legends, you just want to listen. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? But dude, for me, it just fires me up, man. I'm 44. I want to be in this game as long as God will let me. But like the very beginning, Bryan, who I'm doing it with is almost more important, because that's going to really create where it is we go. And you leading this and being able to put all these just monsters together, bro. I'm telling you, it's one of the most exciting seasons of my life, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of it.
Man, that means the world to me, man. First of all, it's humbling to be partners with you and with all the great people that you just mentioned. And then, listen, what you guys created and are creating, I mean, we're just getting started, frankly, at North American Senior Benefits. But what you and Chad Milner created and are creating is humbling to watch. And you guys, I mean, you have a bunch of trucks, and I always get worried about doing this because you don't want to leave anybody out, but just kind of thinking off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about some of the amazing leaders that you guys have. And you got guys like Jordan Smith, who is, I would put Jordan up against anybody in the country. I mean, Jordan is just a phenomenal leader, a great partner at NASB. You got Keith Thomason, you've got Evan Proach, you've got Isaac Smith, one of the best dudes I've ever met in my life. You got Chris Canterobber, you got Garrett Holyfield, Greg Baden, you got Josh Sherrill. Josh is such a stud. The dude tried to recruit me to start selling insurance and almost had me convinced to start selling again. He didn't know who I was, and he's going, hey man, you ought to start doing this. I think you could make a living at this. And I'm like, I love this guy. You got a rock star among rock stars in Ashley. Oh my gosh.
That's right.
And that's just the beginning. Like I've left some people out, but I mean, those are just people on the top of my head about some of the partners you guys have that we're just getting going, man.
Bryan, did you watch last night, The Last Dance, by chance?
I haven't yet. I was just reading about it. I definitely plan on it.
Check it out. 2 hours went last night. This is my opinion. I know people talk about Phil Jackson, and a lot of times, when your name's on something, you get too much credit and you get too much criticism. That's the way it works, right? You get the praise and you get the pitfalls. I feel like I've got a Jordan. I feel like I've got a Rodman. I've got a Kobe. I mean, Phil Jackson, coaches get a lot of credit, but Phil, who couldn't have won with Kobe and Shaq? I mean, I'm looking at that team that Krause put together last night, and I'm like, bro, are you kidding me? Jeff Van Gundy could have won with them, So for me, thank you for shouting out those, because those are the ones. Those are the drivers. Those are the Hemi V6s that I'm so proud of, and my heart beats for, man.
And those are great people. They're just great people. And one of the things I'm so honored about here in Integrity is we've just got a great team of partners all throughout the Integrity family. But you guys certainly have been blessed with one as well. So, well, hey, Craig, thank you so much. I know your mom is just as proud as ever today, as well as your entire family, and I am proud to be your partner. So I love you, my friend. Stay humble, stay focused, and there's no telling where we can all go together, man.
Thank you, boss.
Well, hey, so I really want to thank Craig Harvey again for just being a great example of how to stay motivated, how to stay encouraged, how to be a truck pulling an incredible trailer. And congratulations, NASB team, for all that you guys have created. And thank you for being our partner. We love you and appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you all have an incredible Monday. We're going to have another record week across Integrity. And like I said when we began, the seasons are changing, and I can feel the hope in the air. So continue to pray for this country and all those that are affected, but also continue to pray for normalcy once again. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you all have an amazing day today. God bless you all. Talk to you soon.